Cypress Financial Group presents the Retirement Roundtable Podcast with John Scallan. Get more at cypressfinancial.net. Now, let's get to the show.
My name is Mark Owens. Job headlines have been hard to ignore lately. Meta handed out layoff notices of nearly 8,000 workers. Amazon, Oracle, Nike, UPS, all making cuts. And when those headlines stack up, John, I think a lot of people start quietly asking themselves, what if that's me? You talk about a challenge. What if I get laid off before I can officially retire? What does that do to my retirement plan?
Mark, it's not just a financial shock. It's an emotional shock. People are scared. And when people are scared, sometimes that's exactly when they make some of the worst financial decisions.
When you say worst financial decisions, can you give me an example?
Well, I think, number one, top of the list is cashing out the entire 401k. I mean, I've seen this quite often. Somebody gets that notice, they panic about the income, and they think, well, hey, I've got 200 grand sitting right there. I'll just live off of that. But Mark, what we really challenge our clients to do is just to stop and think. Think when these moments come at you, this thing called life. And, what they don't realize is, cashing out the entire 401k. Guess what? You're paying ordinary income tax on the whole thing. And if you're not 59 and a half, there's a 10% penalty on top of that. So on that $200,000, you could hand back $60,000, $70,000 just like that with one quick decision. Mark, here's the frustrating part. Most people did not need to make that decision in that moment. They just don't know they've got other options. I mean, the first thing I tell anybody in that spot is look, don't touch the retirement account, at least not yet. Let's see what you're actually working with before we make that type of decision.
So, John, I feel like there may be a pink slip in my future, or maybe I do get laid off. Where do I start?
Mark, where you start is by just laying everything out, right? What is the potential severance package and how long does it stretch? What'll unemployment cover? What do you have in savings, in brokerage accounts, anything outside the retirement money? And Mark, more often than not, people are surprised. There's more money there than they thought. Mark, that runway, that's what buys you time to make a good financial decision instead of making a decision when you're in this, let's call it a panic state. I think about someone, let's say they're 57 years old, they get walked out of the door after 20 years at the same company. The first instinct is cash out the 401k, pay off the house. I mean, sometimes this feels safe. And Mark, look, I get it. But when we sit down and we map it out, you've got 6 months of severance, 3 months of expenses in the bank, unemployment on top of that. In this particular situation, that man had almost a full year of breathing room before he'd have to touch one dime of that retirement money. This completely changes the conversation.
And having that conversation or putting those numbers together, that's something most people wouldn't think to calculate on their own.
Mark, most of the time when that life event hits you between your eyes, I mean, you're too stressed out to really think strategically, to think straight. And honestly, that's the real value of having someone in your corner like a financial advisor. This is not a spreadsheet. It's having a person to call before you do something that you can't take back. I mean, Mark, the internet can tell you certainly about the rules of the 401k, the distribution strategies, but it can't talk you off of a ledge on the worst day of your career.
So before you make any rash moves, pick up the phone and call the team at Cypress Financial.
504-732-1001. Listen, come to the office. We will map this out together before a single dollar moves. And again, these first meetings, they're always complimentary.
I bet you've talked to people in the past that come to you and they say, John, I just got laid off. You start running the numbers and you're able to say, buddy, you got two choices. You can go back to work if you want to, but you don't have to.
Mark, that has certainly happened, quite often, right? This particular news, this particular situation, I mean, it's not the worst news like the loss of a loved one, but it's a big deal. Come sit down. Let's give you options. Let's look at your situation. You're exactly right, Mark. Does it make sense to retire? Does it make sense to work a little bit longer? Maybe it just makes sense to wait until we're past 59 and a half so that we don't get hammered with that 10% excise tax. Again, 504-732-1001. We are here to help.
504-732-1001. John, I came across a story this week that stopped me in my tracks. There was a woman who inherited over $740,000 from her aunt. Now, instead of investing it, she put the whole thing in a traditional savings account, earning 0.01% interest. By the time she realized what she'd done, it was too late to fix it because of how the inheritance was structured. What do you make of situations like that?
First thing that comes to mind is ouch. Yeah. I mean, this is really, really painful to hear, but again, it's more common than you'd believe. And it's a perfect example of something we will call opportunity risk. Most people think risk means losing money, your account going down in value. But Mark, the reality is there's another kind of risk that is just as real. It's what your money could have become and didn't. The growth of this asset that you just never got.
So in her situation, in that story, what would that $741,000, what would that have actually grown to if she'd invested it right?
All right, well, Mark, let's do the math. Let's just say a conservative 6% return over 10 years. That $741,000 turns into $1.3 million. Now, listen, bump it to 7%. Now you're closer to $1.5 million. She didn't lose the $741,000. It's all still there. What she lost was $700,000 or $800,000 additional dollars that this money should have grown into. That's the part you never see on a statement.
I got to assume she probably thought she was being responsible by putting it in a savings account.
Mark, of course she did. She felt safe. And with that kind of money, safe feels like the smart move. But here's the kicker. At a 0.01% return, that's $741,000. Now, Mark, you want to be sitting down for this? It earned her about $74 for the entire year. $74. That fear of losing it ended up costing her way more than any reasonable risk ever would have.
Buddy, we've spent more than $70 on a round of golden tea.
I think you owe me $74 from that spanking I gave you on that golf
let's move
machine.
on, John. We're getting off track here, John. I don't want to talk about it, but listen, conversations like this is something you see beyond just inheritances. You have these conversations in regular retirement planning as well.
Mark, all the time. Somebody retires, they dump everything into cash because the market scares them. Somebody gets a bonus and it just, it sits in the checking account for 2 years because they can't decide. Somebody keeps putting off a Roth conversion year after year. Every one of those, that's opportunity risk because the clock, Mark, it's running either way. Here's the question, is whether the clock is running for you or is that clock working against you?
That's a good way to think about it, John. So I guess the question is, how do people avoid falling into that trap? How can you help?
Honestly, Mark, you make the call based on information, not fear. And usually that means having somebody next to you who has seen this 100 times before. Mark, to say I've seen this 100 times would be the greatest understatement of my life because, the worst decisions I see, and got the most expensive ones. They're the ones that people make alone. They don't have counsel. They're scared. They just put it off forever because they're not quite sure. A good financial advisor isn't there to pick you some hot stock. They're there to keep you from freezing when there's actually a safe alternative decision to make.
All right. So somebody right now could be sitting on money, could be an inheritance, could be the bonus, as you just mentioned, but they're not real sure what to do with it. And they'd like to make more than $74 off of it. What could they do?
First of all, pick up the phone and call us, 504-732-1001. These initial meetings are complimentary. When you come to our office, we're not even going to talk about selling you something. This is an appointment about you. What do you have? What do you want? What's your vision? What's keeping you up at night? How can we make additional moves that'll really help you in this next chapter of your life? It'll help you with safely investing these assets that, quite frankly, at 0.01%, it's almost highway robbery that some of these banks are offering to these clients. 504-732-1001. You can always find us at cypressfinancial.net. You can get on the calendar from our homepage. It would be a privilege to meet you and help you work through some of these decisions that may be holding you back.
John just said, leave your checkbook at home. That initial consultation, no cost, no obligation. If John can help you answer the question, where am I? How am I doing? Will I have the income to last as long as I do? 504-732-1001. We have a representative standing by right now. Again, 504-732-1001, cypressfinancial.net.
Insurance products are offered through the insurance business Cypress Financial Group. Cypress Financial Group is also an investment advisory practice that offers products and services through Impact Partnership Wealth, LLC, IPW, a registered investment advisor. IPW does not offer insurance products. The insurance products offered by Cypress Financial Group are not subject to investment advisor requirements. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any reference to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual situation. Cypress Financial Group is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during the show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Cypress Financial Group. This radio show is a paid placement.
Please remember that converting an employer plan account to a Roth IRA is a taxable event. Increased taxable income from the Roth IRA conversion may have several consequences. Be sure to consult with a qualified tax advisor before making any decisions regarding your IRA. Please note it is not possible to invest directly into the S&P 500 index. This measure is provided solely as a gauge of overall market performance. Standard & Poor's, S&P, and S&P 500 are registered trademarks of Standard & Poor's Financial Services, LLC, S&P. The historical performance of the S&P 500 is not intended as an indication of its future performance and is not guaranteed.